The epic drama, Volunteer Army's Heroic Strike, a yearly anti-American aid to Korea film, has finally arrived at Shanghai Film Studio. A word of warning, keep tissues handy. This might be a movie that will make you cry from beginning to end. In 1950, less than a year after the founding of the People's Republic of China, the national liberation situation was excellent, but the international situation was turbulent. On June 25th of the same year, a large-scale civil war suddenly broke out in Korea. Internationally, it was widely believed that this sudden war was merely a civil war between North and South Korea. According to the UN Charter, all parties were prohibited from interfering in the internal affairs of any country. However, the US would not miss this golden opportunity to interfere with the development of the socialist camp. US President Truman urgently convened Congress for discussions, and a resolution to send troops to Korea was unanimously passed. On June 27th, at Truman's command, the U.S. military launched a large-scale invasion of the Korean peninsula by sea, land, and air. However, their ambitions went beyond that. Simultaneously, to prevent China's liberation and unification, the U.S. sent the Seventh Fleet to openly invade the Taiwan Strait. On July 1st, the U.S. manipulated the UN Security Council to pass an illegal resolution to establish a UN army, with MacArthur as the commander-in-chief. That day, MacArthur landed in South Korea, directing the battle on the front lines. However, with the addition of the UN forces, the South Korean army suffered repeated defeats, leaving the People's Army's main force isolated and deeply entrenched. What would the U.S. do next? As the situation became increasingly tense, Chairman Mao ordered the 13th Corps to immediately advance north and establish the Northeast Frontier Defense Army as a precaution. Should we save Korea or not? What about our Northeast Industrial Base? What about Taiwan? We must prepare for the worst. Facts proved how wise Chairman Mao's decision was. On September 15, 1950, the North Korean People's Army was isolated and deeply entrenched. A large number of U.S. naval fleets landed at Incheon, attacking the North Korean army from both the north and south. With the intervention of the UN forces, the scales of victory seemed to have tipped in favor of South Korea. However, to prevent China's intervention, MacArthur used force to intimidate, sending planes to drop a large number of incendiary bombs on the border of northeast China, setting countless innocent civilians ablaze. After the bombing, the U.S. planes turned and left, then stood on a moral high ground to criticize China. Chairman Mao was furious. This was a blatant provocation by the U.S. Unbeknownst to them, their heinous actions had angered a long-awakened Eastern lion. After the U.S. entered the Korean War, its rampant bombing of the border region of northeast China, disregarding the lives of civilians, quickly reached Zhongnanhai. Premier Zhou Enlai was furious. The Chinese people could not tolerate foreign aggression, nor could they stand idly by while the imperialists invaded their neighbors. The entire country was united in its hatred of the aggressors. However, there were still dissenting voices within the country, due to the vast disparity in military strength between China and the U.S. By October 1st, 1950, the People's Republic of China was 1 year old. The UN forces crossed the 38th parallel. News of the North Korean army's rapid collapse reached Beijing. However, whether or not to send troops became the biggest challenge. The U.S. military was 8 times stronger than China. Once war broke out, the disparity was insurmountable. Premier Zhou convened an emergency military meeting regarding sending troops to aid Korea. The main difficulty lay in the U.S.'s powerful military strength and its world-class navy. U.S. planes could fly hundreds of kilometers to the battlefield, carry out bombing missions, and leisurely return for afternoon tea. Fighting them would be like an egg hitting a stone. Everyone understood this, yet the threat from the U.S. military was imminent. The straight-line distance from Pyongyang to the Yalu River was only 160 kilometers. The U.S. armored forces could reach the border in half a day, exposing China's heavy industrial region in northeast China. If the hope for peace was merely hoping the other side wouldn't shoot, could it still be called hope? Was the crossing of the border and indiscriminate killing of civilians a mere hypothesis? Were the warships blocking the Taiwan Strait, preventing China's unification, a hypothesis? The Korean War's outcome was uncertain, but China had no way out. Only by winning could the Chinese people survive. Chairman Mao urgently recalled Peng Dehuai, entrusting him with this heavy responsibility. The biggest challenge on the Korean battlefield was air superiority. Premier Zhou urgently contacted the